we may be seeing some early signs of sponsorship issues at NASCAR's most popular, and I think many would say its most famous team, Hendrick Motorsports. Now, this does come on the heels of a sponsor announcement extension, or an extension announcement. It was Lumar Windows, which of course, if you clicked on this video and you've been following the Kyle Larson story, they definitely played a part in Kyle Larson returning to Hendrick Motorsports, which led many people to believe that the new number and the new car that they were going to announce today would be for Kyle Larson. However, it was announced today that they will be extending for 3 years with Hendrick Motorsports with Chase Elliott. But perhaps a very key point here, as reported by Adam Stern, they are only going to be a primary sponsor for 2 years. And many eagle-eyed folks over on Twitter also noticed a very obvious missing sponsor, and that is any kind of PepsiCo branding on this race car and also on Chase Elliott's suit. No Mountain Dew, no Pepsi, no nothing. So the question is now, with this announcement, has something else been announced under the table? And that is that potentially Pepsi is no longer in NASCAR. And of course, Pepsi had such a long standing and running advertising campaign, so many great paint schemes and commercials with Jeff Gordon, and they continued with other Hendrick Motorsports drivers like Casey Kane. It's been a while since Pepsi appears to be out fully from NASCAR. And then the other question, of course, now is, are there any sponsors that will associate with Kyle Larson in the 2021 NASCAR season? Because it looks like every sponsor that was affiliated with what was used to be called the 88 car, which of course now is the 5, is turning tail and running in an opposite direction, even if they are staying within Hendrick Motorsports. So there's a lot to break down here. Let's talk about it. And I guess we'll start with Pepsi, because again, this is something that's not confirmed by any stretch of the imagination, but it seems like the signs are on the wall. And in fact, I didn't notice it at first. Again, it was kind of one thing that I read as kind of going through, and a couple of people were tagging me in some of the speculation. The thing that I did notice about that Lumar car was that it was very bare. There wasn't a lot of space used on it. It's, the contingency sponsors are a thing of the past, obviously. But even just like contingency team associated sponsors were very, very limited on that particular car. So it's definitely concerning. And again, I don't want to be too much of an alarmist here, but you should prepare, especially with the economy potentially looking pretty bad for a couple of years, that companies are going to be looking to trim what they consider to be non-essential activities. And unfortunately, NASCAR is in a pretty bad position right now, because a lot of these teams are going to have, while I think the next-gen car, well, you would hope that the next-gen car will eventually cut costs, but there is going to be a large startup cost for the teams to go out and buy those brand new chassis, brand new engines, all of that stuff, all that new equipment. And of course, they are still using the legacy cars at this point, which have pretty high development costs, even though NASCAR is cutting practice days and qualifying days, at least temporarily, hopefully temporarily, to try to mitigate that. The fact remains that the budgets are still very, very high, and I think will continue to be high, at least for probably the next 5 or 6 years, regardless of the next-gen car. And the TV ratings, while I think they've flatlined finally, do they justify the amount of cost that companies are willing to put into NASCAR, or have to keep some of these teams funded? Now, one thing that seems to be, again, the direction that NASCAR's business model is going in the direction of, and which is why I will talk about Kyle Larson, and it'll segue into that, is that I think as long as the charter system is around, and it's going to be weird to say that, you won't see teams get rid of cars. So, ironically, in some ways, I may actually be defending the charter system here. Now, certainly it's bad for small teams. It's horrible for new teams. Anybody who's trying to get into the sport, unless you are a 23XI or a 2311, believe it or not, I actually thought that's what the team name was. I'm an idiot. But I just never heard it said out loud for whatever reason. And then people in the comments were going, was he serious? Apparently I was. But unless you have those kind of connections, you are not going to be anywhere near the Cup Series anytime soon if you're a privateer or if you're just a businessman trying to get into the Cup Series. But it does look like that stuff like... So if Hendrick has purchased 4 charters, and even though he's only got sponsorship for 3 cars, he's not going to get rid of that charter because as of right now, that charter is valuable enough that you can put a driver like Kyle Larson in and be virtually unsponsored for the entire year. And I guess at least the idea would be that Rick Hendrick will break even on that car. And then hopefully either Larson will find a sponsor eventually, or they'll be able to put a driver in there who can get a sponsor and perform at the level of Kyle Larson. But it is an opportunity, like I've said several times, that Kyle Larson has here to perform and not have the pressure of sponsors. What I guess I didn't anticipate, and I guess I should have, was just to what extent Kyle Larson's image is damaged with sponsors. We've seen... So the car he's in now is the 88. The vacancy actually was the 48 car, which had the Ally Bank sponsorship, which of course Ally Bank, we'd actually heard rumors that Ally Bank was like, no, we don't want Larson. So they moved Bowman over there, and Ally was happy. Now we're seeing a sponsor that we know, have confirmed through Kyle Larson himself, has reached out and spoken to Kyle Larson about obviously personal issues, but they have had associations with them. Even that company with public affiliation with Kyle Larson is moving on to Chase Elliott. So it looks like, I mean, unless there's a sponsor sitting out there somewhere that is going to step up, and I'm not saying it's not going to happen, because again, I do think that eventually, especially once Kyle Larson starts getting results and achieving results in the Cup Series, I do think sponsors will come back to that organization and that driver. But right now, it's pretty clear that the companies are really wanting to be hands off. And the other thing, of course, is that technically Kyle Larson is still suspended. He hasn't come back to NASCAR yet. So that could be another reason we're not seeing any kind of announcements outside of, yes, he's going to Hendrick Motorsports. Maybe there are some sponsors who are going to sign on who haven't had the ability, or it would just be bad timing to say, hey, we're Company X, and we are going to sponsor suspended NASCAR driver who said the N-word, Kyle Larson. Maybe you wait till NASCAR reinstates him and announce those things. But I honestly, honest to God, I would not be surprised if you see that car out on track and it says Hendrick Cars Limited or whatever for virtually the entire year. Maybe you get a little Lucas Oil sticker on there, but I would not be shocked one bit if he doesn't pick up a primary sponsor for at least next year, maybe going forward. I don't know. We'll have to see. The business model of the sport is changing rapidly, and it's changing significantly. And I'm not making this comparison because I'm comparing the two series. I'm just mainly saying I've seen this happen before. This reminds me so much of like post-economic crash IndyCar racing, where things got tight and you had a lot of paid drivers and you had a lot of teams with not a lot of sponsorship. Even big teams like Team Penske, they had 2 or 3 cars that just had no sponsorship for like 2 years. Eventually they, of course, found sponsorship, and once the business kind of right-sized, everything was fixed. But for a while there, even the big teams were feeling this, and I would not be surprised if Hendrick Motorsports, you see blank cars, or you see cars that say ChevyParts.com or HendrickCars.com. We are already seeing that. You're probably going to see it more. Will Chase Elliott ever not have a primary sponsor? Guess not. Will Bubba Wallace ever not have a primary sponsor? No, probably not. But a lot of those drivers that are either lower on the totem pole or they have baggage like Kyle Larson obviously does, they're not going to be first in line for sponsors. And it's a seller's market right now when it comes to sponsors. It's not a buyer's market. It's going to be whoever the sponsor is going to dictate where they go and what their terms are and how much they're going to be paying. And that's just going to be the way things are, it seems, going forward in sponsor land in NASCAR. So, speaking of land, subscribe to David Land if you enjoy motorsport content like this. And we'll see you in the next video. I'm about to be snowed in, so that's going to be exciting. Hopefully, the power doesn't go out tomorrow. So hopefully, if something happens, I will be able to bring you another video. And we'll see you then.